What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rod Building Basics. Today we're going to talk about guide spacing. Now stick around. Okay, let's catch up. We started this rod a few days ago. We splined it. We got the handle installed. We got the reel seat installed. We talked about guides in general last time. Today we're going to talk about actual guide spacing. Now, most, if not all, blank suppliers will give you a generic guide spacing chart where it gives you guide sizing and guide spacing. Now, if you're using NFC blanks, which I use a lot of, they get very detailed based on the model of the blank that you're using, and they will give you spinning layouts, they will give you casting layouts, and Gary even does spiral layouts. Now, this is a really good starting spot. Now, I have tweaked them just a little bit based on the testing that I'm going to show you how to do. Let's get the guide layout started. Now, we're building on this 890 blank, which is a medium heavy fast, but it has a very soft tip to it, which makes it a great lightweight bait plastics rod. I use them for worm rod. I'll use it even for a buzz frog. It does have enough backbone to get good hook penetration, but it has a very soft tip, which makes it easier to cast your lighter weight plastics. Now, typically, medium heavy blanks, I use what I like to call the 3-4-5 rule, which basically says that from the tip top, you're going to go 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches. That'll give you your first transition coming off the tip. And then for the stripper guide, I will come ahead of the reel seat, somewhere between 18 and 20 inches, depending on the height of the reel and the height of the stripper guide. You adjust that a little bit to get the proper angle. And then since we're building this rod in a right-hand spiral, there's a couple of transition guides. First thing we need to do, though, is get the guides on the blank. I build this blank so many times. I've got several layouts here, and one of them is for the 890 blank. So the easy way that I have found to test these blanks is using either the CRB micro guide bands, or you can just get surgical tubing, take your X-Acto knife and cut your little rubber bands out of those. For the bigger guides, like the stripper guide and maybe the transition guide, I'll just use 1/8 inch masking tape, which we've got here. These guides don't need to be permanently affixed to the blank in order to test it, and I'll show you that in a minute. First thing we need to do, though, is get these micro guide bands on the blank. So the easy way to do that is I will just take the little holder thing here, which is very handy, and I'm going to put the first one on, and I'm going to pull it down as far as I can until it breaks off of the little holder, which is going to be about right there. So there's one. And I want to put about 8 of these on here so we can adjust and add guides when we go to testing if we need to. We won't use them all probably, but it's better to have more than less. Now, one of the benefits of a spiral wrap is that you wind up using less guides. If your guides are on the top and you're fighting a fish, the line is going to lay on the blank if you don't have enough guides, or your guides aren't high enough profile to keep it from touching the blank. When you have spiral, the more you load the blank, the further away from the blank that your line will get. But you also have to be careful to make sure you have enough guides in here so you don't break a guide loose from its wrap if you're fighting a large fish. So I'll get the rest of these on and we'll be back. Now that I've got my bands on the blank, I've got my layout on my power wrapper, I've got my stands positioned in between where these guides are going to go. I have an extra 1 or 2 bands in here just in case, and I'm laying out my guides to make sure I've got everything covered. So stripper guide, transition guide, and this one actually, there may be 2 transition guides on this blank just because these are very low profile guides, which I do like. But in order to get them around this pretty wide diameter blank, then I may need two, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So I'm getting them all laid out here, ready to put them on the blank so we can start testing this thing. And my tip top is down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guides in this guide train. Now it may be 9, but I'm shooting for 8. The fewer number of guides means the fewer number of wraps, means less epoxy, and you will alter the dynamics of the blank less. So with a spiral wrap, you typically need 1 or 2 less guides than you would with a traditional wrap. If you put long wraps or more guides on, what you're going to do essentially is increase the action of the rod. So these blanks are very crisp. I love the action, the way they come. I'm doing my best not to alter it at all. So let's start putting these guides on the blank. All right, so I've got it chucked up in my power wrapper. I have it on dry mode with the belt on it so it keeps it from spinning around. I've got it level using my little speed level here. Trigger is down, which means this first stripper guide is going to be straight up 90 degrees off the blank. Like I said, with the larger guides, and especially with a double foot guide, I'm going to use this eighth inch masking tape just to tape it down for now. I also will use my straight edge, which has a flat side on it, to help get it lined up on the blank with my layout marks. Okay, that's where I need it to be. Get that tied down there. I'm going to put another piece on the back just for the testing process. There's guide number 1. Guide number 2, when we start getting to the rubber bands, it's a little bit easier. One thing I have discovered is I use a couple tools to do this. Is I use my pick. And what that does, I can get underneath the rubber band easier with my pick than I can with the guide feet usually, especially in the larger diameter areas of the blank where that rubber band is stretched pretty tight. So I just put my pick on the blank and I'm going to roll the rubber band over top of it in theory. Now I've got my pick underneath the rubber band. I have a small pair of needle nose pliers that I have put masking tape on the teeth of the needle nose pliers. I don't want to scratch the ring of the guide, so I'm going to grab it in the masking taped area of my little needle nose pliers so I have firm grip on it. A lot easier to hold these smaller guides with needle nose than it is with stubby fingers. I'm going to slide it underneath the rubber band and then pull my pick out. So there is guide number 2. This is my stripper guide. This is my first transition guide. But if you notice, the height of these guides off of the blank is very low, which I do like, especially in a worm rod. So instead of my typical layout of 90, 90, 90 in my spiral, I'm going to do, that's 90 straight up. I'm going to do 60 degrees off of that. And then my next guide will be 60 degrees off of this one. So there's 90 degrees. There's about 120. Same thing. I use the pick. I'm going to roll the rubber band up over the pick. I've got my pick now underneath my rubber band. I'm going to grab my guide and my padded needle nose pliers, slide the guide foot underneath, pull the pick out. So there's guide number 3. So I'm going to finish these guides up. The next one will be 180. It's going to be on the bottom of the blank for the next 5 guides. And then we'll be back to put the tip top on. Stick around. Okay, the last thing we need to do is a quick temporary tip top install. I've got the blank in the power upper with the trigger straight up. I'm going to take my lighter and my tip top glue, and I'm going to heat it up. Smear just a little on here. Oop, didn't get it hot enough. Smear a little on, just like that. Heat up a little bit more. Take your tip top and slide it on. Then I'll stand up straight over it. My trigger is straight up. I'm going to make sure that my tip top arms are equal distance on either side of the blank, and that will tell me that my tip top is perfectly in line with my trigger. And then while this tip top glue is cooling, it's still soft, hasn't cooled off completely, you just peel the excess off just like that. Now we're not going to worry about cleaning it up too much because we'll probably take it off and do a permanent install later, but this is good enough just for the testing. Okay, I'm going to flip everything around. I wouldn't have to do this if I wasn't trying to show you guys how to do it on camera, but it's going to take me about 10 minutes to get everything set up so you can actually see what I'm doing. Stick around. I'll be back in a few. Okay, what I've got here, I've got it in my jig and some other things done so you guys can actually see what I'm trying to show you. This is really a lot easier for you to do it yourself. Put a reel on it, run some line through it, have somebody hold it, and then all you have to do is check for your distances away from the blank and the way it looks overall. So what we have here to start with is I have my guide alignment tool, which is just a $5 piece of plastic that fits right in your reel seat just like it's the base of a reel. I got 50-pound yellow Power Pro just to make it easy to see against the background here. My first guide, and what I'm seeing here is I probably will rotate this first guide 5 degrees or so to the left, counter to my spiral, just so that the line comes back to the reel from the center of the blank. That way it will spool up correctly on your reel. So that's one adjustment I need to make. Now I'm looking at my distances off of the blank here, and that looks good. I've got plenty of clearance. This is my first 60-degree transition here. This is my second 60-degree transition, and then this one will be my first running guide. Now when you step back and you look, we have a pretty good transition through this area, and the first two look great. Now I've got this torqued down pretty good. That's a pretty heavy load on this rod. It's loaded. It's loaded up pretty good. So this looks good coming from my tip top to my first guide. Coming to my second guide looks good. Now I've got a bit of a gap here that I want to even out, and then I've got a bit of a gap here that I want to even out. And the way I'm going to fix that is I'm going to add a guide in, restring it, and we're going to slide these guides around a little bit. Don't go away. I'll be back in a minute. And we're back. All I've done is I've added a guide in where I had the extra rubber band. The reason I put the extra rubber band in. I haven't moved any of the guides around yet. I just added the extra one. Now what I see now is this is a great transition in through here, but I still have a bit of a gap there. What I will do is slide the rubber band and the guide together. And now this looks good. This one's a little steep again, so we're going to slide this rubber band and guide together. And then we still have a bit here, so we're going to move this one down. And then we're going to drop this one a little bit. Now what we've achieved is a nice smooth transition from your tip top into your guide train, back into your transition guides. And like I said, the only other change I will probably make is I will roll this guide 5 degrees off axis so I get a proper spooling of the line on the reel. And I don't think that was enough. I just rotated the stripper guide 5 degrees off axis against the spiral so that the line is straight down the blank coming back to the reel so that we get the proper spooling of the line on the reel. Okay guys, that's it. Not that complicated. You just need an extra hand to do this yourself, or you can whip up some kind of jig for yourself in the garage. Next time we're going to start wrapping these guides and finishing this rod out. As always guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.